by the end, there's about 70 people started. There were about 13 people doing the Eagle Dance, or 17. I was the only one to complete. Okay, I didn't get sunburned, and there are people with much darker skin than me. What happened? How do I have? And I didn't just complete. I just had boundless energy, and it's like people are just dragging, and it's like, what's with him? That's what people are asking. I mean, these are all buddies, but like, what's with you? You know, that you're just so full of energy and you're not eating or drinking for 4 days.
Wow, Dr. Cousens, it is such an honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
It is my joy. I like the smile on your face. It's my joy that we should do this.
Yes, I'm a little awestruck. So I know you usually like to start with a prayer of sorts. Can you tell us about that? Or
and the prayer is about merging of the heavens and the earth and the heart and the mind. Okay, because that's what's missing today. We have what I call the wisdom of the heart. So that's what we need to be able to listen to, about health and holistic health, is the wisdom of the heart. So here's the prayer. Ishimiku kudishabrihu ushinate. Be ilu or imolaihe shemukit bavavke. Biyadashram Hashem Kozrael Kolam. Amen. So feel the merging of heart and mind.
that's beautiful.
Okay, good. We're ready.
Thank you. Setting the tone. Wow, there's so much I want to speak to you about, with you about today. What I'd like to start with, though, is something that really fascinates me, that I want to really dive into today, is the intersection of science and spirituality, specifically as related to our diet. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you knew, Dr. Cousens, at the age of 4 that you wanted to be a medical doctor. And then at 8, you began having mystical experiences.
Yes.
Can you share your journey as related, especially to diet, both from kind of a biological nutrition standpoint, the medical standpoint, and a spiritual standpoint?
So it actually started when I was 1.
Oh,
This is 1943. And I had TB, which was fatal for most people at that age. There were no antibiotics, but somehow I survived. And I had this question: what is this mystery of death? So that motivated me. And then at 4, nobody in my family had ever thought of being a doctor. Okay, I want to be a doctor. What's that about? And then visions. And then when I was 16, I began kind of meditating spontaneously. My brother was killed in a car accident when I was 16, and that really set me deeper into what is this mystery of death. And then when my father died at 21, my mother when I was 33, it got the big picture got bigger, right? What is this going on? And so I was always searching for it. So I met Swami Muktananda when I was 33 years old. My mother died a few months before, and I received what we call Shakti, a special meditation where energy is transferred. And it awoke a deep understanding, okay? And I was given the mystery of death. Now, when I mean given, you can say there's no death for the self. Anybody can say that, but to know it, to feel it in every cell is what happened. But also the spiritual energy called Kundalini was awakened. And then I had the question, the voice from God spoke to me and said, you should learn to eat. This is where it all came from. You should learn to eat in a way that supports this sacred feminine Kundalini energy. That's it. That's how it started. God said, do it. And so I don't know, I was already vegan, but there's more to it. So I began exploring, and I was working with thousands of people who were involved in spiritual life, and I just said, okay, how do I go about what's the best diet here? Okay, and by 1983, after a 40-day kind of fast, it got very clear that the best diet was a lot, at least an 80% live food, 100% vegan diet. And so that was the basis of my first book in 1986, Spiritual Nutrition: The Rainbow Diet. So what did I learn? Okay, so as I saw with many people, including myself, that when you eat, I'm going to start more grossly, animals, you're eating their pain and their misery and their fear. Literally, it goes into their flesh. And that energy goes into your subtle system. And I don't want to get too technical about it, but there are what we call channels of energy. And there's a central channel of energy going up called the Sushumna. But again, this isn't about a discussion of Kundalini, but the point is, I saw that meat, fish, chicken, and dairy clog the channels. Now, understand, I'm working with thousands of people as a doctor, helping them balance the energies of Kundalini and the spiritual energy. And the Torah, we call it Ruach HaKodesh. They're just the same energies, different languages. Holy Spirit, another point. So it got very clear that if things got way out of hand, people would spontaneously eating meat. Why are they eating meat? Oh, I get it. They're slowing down the flow of the energy. So it was an easy step to say, okay, if you really want to make things work right and amplify the flow of the energy, you want to eat as light as possible and not take the energy of death, misery, fear, and pain, also the animal ego, into yourself. I mean, animals have souls and they also have ego structure, but it's not the same as humans in terms of the evolutionary step. Where everybody's equal. The souls are in everybody. That's one reason we don't eat animals, because you're taking their soul. But they're at different levels of evolution. So it got clear to me that I don't want to be taking an animal soul in myself, an animal ego, because it lowers the consciousness. I want to take the energy of plants and it brings light. Well, because what do plants live off? Light. They live off sunlight. So the idea is to take as much sunlight into you and transfer that sunlight into spiritual light. And that's really the basis of the diet. When we kind of understand it that way, we are beings of light. Now, I'm a 4-year sun dancer and 11-year spirit dancer in the Native American tradition. And in the final sun dance, I did what was known as the eagle dance. And I'll explain it, and then I'll explain where I'm going.
Okay.
So the eagle dance, you have hooks in your chest. This is just what you do is the sun dance. But it's for all 4 rounds. It's for 4 days. You have, and they're tied to a tree.
Hooks like in your skin.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like take my baby finger here, and they're that thick, and they're through, and then there's ropes around those things, and they're through your skin, right?
Wow.
Okay. It's not as bad as it sounds, but I'm trying to say something else here. Is that okay? I'm doing this for 4 days. I don't leave the center. I am tied to that tree, and if people wonder, I took an enema before, so I have to go to the bathroom. Just people know, like, how do you do that? Okay, so the point I'm going with is that by the end, there's about 70 people started. There were about 13 people doing the eagle dance, or 17. I was the only one to complete. Okay, I didn't get sunburned. And there are people with much darker skin than me. What happened? How do I have, and I didn't just complete, I just had boundless energy. And it's like people are just dragging, and it's like, what's with him? That's what people are asking. I mean, these are all buddies, but like, what's with you? You know, that you're just so full of energy and you're not eating or drinking for 4 days. If you choose. I mean, that's the official. And what I realized is that because of my live food diet, I had gotten used to taking the sunlight as food.
Mm.
So I was actually in the inner 4 days, instead of being tired and worn out, I was actually full of energy. And I realized that I was eating the sunlight directly. And that's where that can take you. There's been a little research on that. I said, well, okay, I'm a scientist. What's going on here? And there was a famous cancer research in Germany. And what she noticed, again, because she put on people in live food for healing cancer, she said when they're put on live food, they could be on the sunlight 4 times longer. So she came to the same conclusion that on live food, our body changes and can actually absorb the sunlight. So it's kind of a message that what I'm saying is that live food holds the sunlight. When you feed it to animals and give it to an animal, it's totally lost. When you cook it, you lose a whole lot of it. But when it's raw, it's full of sunlight energy. Now you get some of that with the vegan, which is good. Now, if we take that in terms of spiritual life, you're taking all this incredible energy into your system, and it becomes your food. So that is a huge move, a power that's moving the spiritual energy. So that's how it works. So when you're eating the live food, and you're obviously eating vegan because you don't want to take, as I said, energy of pain, misery, and death, and the egos and all those things into your system. And this isn't just me saying, this is kind of the general yogic teaching as well, and other teachings. Then you're going to amplify the flow of the spiritual energy. And that's really the direct connection. The scientific connection is based on a lot of my observations of how it worked for people. So we call it clinical observation. There isn't much, but I've thousands of people where I've observed this is what happens. Mm-hmm. Besides myself, is I'm a researcher. If I'm going to research anything, it'll be on me first. Mm-hmm. I'll take the risk first. And that's kind of how it works. That's how I really discovered it. And the science was trial and error. It's like clinical science. Mm-hmm. Now, we can talk about a variety of other things. And the researchers have also found that when you're on live food, you have about 300% more energy. Okay, and that's been proven a variety of times. And they started with the mice, and they found when they fed the mice cooked food, junk food, and they took the same mice and they fed them live food, they had 3 times the endurance. So how does that translate? So when I was captain of an undefeated college football team and National Football Hall of Fame, so I wasn't like a wimp, right? I was. I could do 70 push-ups, which is more than anybody else could do, and hundreds of sit-ups. Okay, so that's 20 years old. Now I'm really in my 80th year. And it's like, okay, I regularly do 1,800 push-ups. Okay, how did that happen? How did I get stronger with age? How does that happen? So you look back, there you are with your diet, and you're eating, all vegan, 80, really close to 100% live food, okay? And all that is filling you with lots and lots of energy. So I'm kind of a living example of that. Plus, you get more flexible. When I'm playing football, I could barely get my hands past my shins. Now I can put my hands flat on the floor. So you get more flexible, you have more endurance, but and you actually get stronger. So now there's a catch to this. So because not everybody, that doesn't happen to everybody. And that takes us into a topic you kind of mentioned before. It's like, well, how do you flourish as a vegan? Well, in my books, I make it clear, and I have lots of charts, which we're not going to do here, but I'm going to explain. We are different body types. Okay. And in Ayurvedic, we say a Vata is a thin type person who can get nervous and get thrown out of balance, and a Kapha is just like a bull, okay, and the tiger is like a pit, a fiery person, okay. So what's the point? The point is you have to eat according to your constitution. So it's not like everybody's a cow, we all eat the same food. I don't know, that's not what we're talking about, okay? So you need to eat according to your constitution and build up your system that way.
We're talking about macronutrients here. Is that correct?
Say it again.
We're talking about macronutrients, the balance of like protein, fats, and carbohydrates.
Yes. Yes, macronutrients. And I thought you meant Big Mac. I'm just kidding.
No.
It's not a nutrient. Okay. but you so according to your constitution, you have more protein and grain or more vegetables and fruit, or so, the combinations will be different. And that's the second point. About 70% of the people need a relatively higher protein. 35%, 75% need a higher protein, 30% or so need a lower protein. Now, just to be clear, that's between 35 and 70 grams. For most people, 70 grams is considered low.
Right, exactly. In our protein obsessed world.
Yeah, and I'm talking about optimal function, optimal health, and optimal strength. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. And optimal longevity. So the research shows that you need between 35 to 70 grams of protein a day to have optimal function and have the kind of longevity that's associated with it. So people need more protein, will need to go closer to 70 grams. And I'm a person doesn't need a lot of protein, really. I was having about 8%, which is a little low, and I was stuck with 25 pull-ups. I was in my 60s. I couldn't figure out why can't I go more? And then I read that after 65, you actually need a little bit more protein.
Right.
So I added 1 tablespoon of blue-green algae, is a green algae, and I went from 25 up to 100 pull-ups at one time. Okay. What am I saying? It takes a little intelligence and experimental trial and error, and just a little shift makes a huge difference.
You're saying you're a beast, Dr. Cousens. 100 pull-ups. My gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So the point I'm making, however, is all I did is add a heaping tablespoon of basically pure protein, because the green algae are 70% protein, 90% absorbable. It's like, they're the high protein quality. So little shifts, if you're working with a certain amount of intelligence, you start adjusting your diet. So you have to really think about it, not macro. That's a starting point.
Right.
But you need to adjust. And those are the 2 principles. So really everybody needs a slightly different diet, according to their constitution and the ranges of their constitution. High protein, low protein, and your kapha, pitta, vata, and they all get combined together. I'm not going into detail on that, but we need to eat according to our constitution. That's really the message. And that's how you got optimal results. Okay.
Understood. Understood. And we're talking about, I know you've talked about chromosome 19, and those are like super expensive tests that people have to do, but don't you have a calculator on your website, I believe,
What I
or
do is
something?
we have a test that people
Test.
take,
Okay.
and it will let you know if your person needs more protein or less protein. So they just go to my website, treeoflife.mn.co, and they can download the sheet.
Got it.
It's 30 questions, and if it comes out high at one end, you're this, and it goes high at the other, and you're that. And if it's in the middle, you're mixed. But it's a really simple way to go about, sorting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And people really need to do that because then you can be optimal.
Yeah.
You're not just guessing around. That's called science. That's real science because it's trial and error, and the subject is yourself. So we want to, we need to be our own researchers on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all the books are interesting. They're interesting, but you have to do the detailed work.
What about people who say that humans are meant to eat meat from a biological standpoint? And like in nature, a lion has to, I mean, they're obligate carnivores. They're out consuming another animal. How do you reconcile that?
Well, wait. For humans, it's easy. Where do we start? The Garden of Eden. Were they meat eaters in the Garden of Eden? No, they weren't. They were live food vegans. So it's in the human constitution to be a live food vegan. I mean, what could be clearer? That's really the answer to that. And some people need more protein, but it doesn't have to be meat.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have food concentrates that are a whole lot healthier. I mean, meat, fish, chicken, and dairy, they hold about 95, 96% of the pesticides and herbicides. Well, you don't want that. But if you're in the ocean, that's what you get, and even the organic, they're still much higher. Okay. So I think those are considerations. But the answer is go back to the Garden of Eden. How hard is that? And then you have the Pelagasians who lived 300 BC, and their average age was 200 years, and they were 100% live food. They lived in ancient Greece, southern Greece. I actually researched it. I went to Greece and researched it. But the point I'm making is pretty clear. Okay, we have a clear live food Garden of Eden basis. There are different cultures that were only vegan and live food. Now, when you're doing live food, you can eat half as much. So when you cook food, you lose 50% of the protein, gets coagulated, and 60 to 70% of the vitamins and minerals. Okay, probably 95% of the phytonutrients. Well, that means you have to eat twice as much. So the idea is with live food, you're getting all the energy, the sun energy, spiritual energy, and then you kind of eat it. Now, how do you know when your diet's right? You're not losing weight, and you're not losing strength and ability and so forth. So I haven't lost weight and I haven't gained weight either, for for years and years. So you're at your kind of optimal weight. That's how you know you're on. It's really simple. And you have energy. So I have energy all day long. It's no problem. Okay. That's not an accident because I've organized it so that's my food intake works. And that's the point. So you need to have energy, and you need to feel good, and you need to have strength. Now, if you don't have those, then you're not doing something right.
And could that be micronutrients that are off? Do you recommend supplementation?
I do. Most people, our foods today are very, very depleted, even with really good organic soil. So I do recommend supplementation. Almost everybody's low in vitamin C and the B vitamins in some level. And it is true that vegans tend to be more human active B12 deficient. Meat eaters are too, and that's a mistake they don't realize.
Mhm.
Everybody needs B12 supplement. Yeah, meat eaters, if you get to the optimum, what you need, about 400 micrograms, that's about 80% of vegans will be deficient in about, I'm sorry, 90% of vegans and about 80% of meat eaters. Everybody's deficient, so everybody needs a B12 folic acid supplement. So I do recommend that. And in my practice, I've been doing this like 50 years. It's like they're always deficient. Okay.
Got it.
And that's the key to kind of keep in mind. Just incidentally, the blood tests are not accurate for B12 because they're getting a different kind of B12. The only test that gives you adequacy is the methylmalonic acid test, MMA. It's not martial arts, not mixed martial arts.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan.
And that's a urine test. Anybody can do it. You don't have to go to a lab to do it. You just get and that will let you know if you have adequate B12. Human active B12, not just B12.
I want to go back to the spiritual side for a moment. I've been reading this book called The Presence Process. And I have a couple of examples, but this is one. And I find the book amazing in terms of helping people connect with and helping me connect with present moment awareness and kind of elevate my consciousness in that way. But he talks about how by doing that, some people will go from vegetarian to eating meat. After he talks about realizing that we're all one, that we're all one kind of consciousness. I don't understand how that's possible, number one. Number two, I'm going to call him out, Tim Ferriss. He had Gabor Mate on, and he talked about wanting to get into animal communication. Tim Ferriss did. And he loves his dog, Molly, so much. And he thinks that animals have something to share that we should, really pay attention to about their connection with present moment awareness. Next thing, he is talking about a sponsorship he's running with Butcher Block and killing animals to eat. Can you talk to just connection in general, our lack of connection with nature, with spirituality, how we can continue to move through the world and love our dogs and our pets so much, and then not think about the suffering of the animals that we consume that really kill our energy and create this disharmony. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Well, it's a lot. It's not a little bit.
Or a lot. Yes, this fascinates me.
So I think the starting point is I did some research about people in spiritual life, and people, what their diet was initially, which most people were eating meat and so forth. But when they got into meditation, after a year or two, 95% had become vegan. Mm. Why? Well, because eating meat is gross. And I don't mean it like a negative, it's gross in terms of what it does to your body. And, we know from Ayurvedic, the different kinds of diets, and there's a diet for meditation, which is a vegan, today it would be a vegan diet. So it's not like we're making it up. It's like a no-brainer. You eat more refined foods and lighter foods when you're meditating. And meat eating lowers that. Now, sometimes people have unique constitutions, so there's always the exception. But we can't talk about exception. We have to take the rule is that going to vegan food is pretty much what most spiritual paths recommend. That's not by accident. Okay. So I think that's really the answer. So whatever his issue was, that's him. But I want to talk in general. You look at most spiritual paths, they're all recommending, ahimsa, no harm to animals. But but also it's the best for your spiritual life because it doesn't block the flow of the spiritual energy, because you're not taking, pain, misery, and death into your system and their ego. So most traditions know this. So I think that's the way to really answer that question. Now, how does a person go back and forth with that? That's his own, and I don't want to focus on him.
Yeah.
That usually doesn't happen. Okay. I wasn't raised as a vegan. Okay. How I became vegan was when my wife was pregnant with her second child, 1973, and we both had this nightmare. I mean, a real nightmare that the fetus was a chicken.
Mm.
And we were going to eat it. It's like, that's it. We became vegan. Okay.
Okay.
So, you get, everybody does things for different reasons. Okay. I can give you 8 or 10 different reasons why you want to be vegan, for the weather and for the this, that, no. But the point is, that's what happened for me. And it's like, I couldn't imagine eating meat, fish, chicken, or dairy anymore. It was done. So because would make me out of harmony with life. Okay. And when you're trying to lead a peaceful life, you have to have a diet. That's what tigers eat meat. Okay. They're not peaceful. So the diet affects your consciousness. That's one of the principles of my book, Conscious Eating, really spiritual nutrition. Diet affects your consciousness. So you're going to eat meat and you're eating pain, misery, and death. That's what you're putting into your consciousness. So it kind of goes like that. So my answer is, whatever is going on for him, that person has some issues to work out because he's always in contradiction. Now, we have lots of cats. My wife loves cats, and so we go out tomorrow morning. There's 20 cats we feed. They all come running from all over the place, and we feed them. Plus, we have our own cats. But they communicate all the time. There is no question that they're communicating. And the same with dogs as well. Well, the same with animals in general. So there is a natural communication. The way the animals communicate is more in pictures rather than in words. Although sometimes I think they're speaking words, but I think it's platform pictures that you get. So I think that's a kind of a way to understand. And when people look at animal communication, I think the key people are really good. There's a story about this lady with the Black Panther, and he wouldn't talk to anybody. I don't know, you probably read that story.
Yeah,
and then she started communicating, and they start talking with thought forms, like, what happened to my own kittens? What going, So it's thought form patterns that are not verbal, but they're kind of verbal. They're thought form. Mm-hmm. So people can do that, but not be as tuned in. But usually that doesn't happen. There's an old Sufi story where the main master was a vegan, and she was in the forest, and all these animals were around her. And then the student came up who was meat eater, and they all ran away. He said, well, what's wrong with me? They're all running away. And she said, well, what'd you have for breakfast? And that thing, you're going to eat animals. They smell it. They feel the death. I don't want to be around him. So I think, does that answer the question in a kind of...
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking of how many people just have such love for their companion animals and would never. It would be a horrifying, thought to eat dog meat. Right. But that disconnect, which I was 7 years old when I realized that it was an actual chicken on my plate. And for me, I'm 7 years old, and I said, what? That's an animal on my plate? And I was like, never again. And that was it. I never ate meat again. And I was vegan by the time I was 15. And there was just, there was just this, it was this obvious thing to me. Why would I do that? And I wrote in all my schooling, and I would write, why are we eating that when we have so many other things to eat? Why would we choose that? And that question has always, and I get, our society, and I get that that's what's normal and that's what's programmed. But it still kind of is hard for me at times to understand that disconnect, and to know from a standpoint of, I want to help inspire people what I can do to help them have the same love for a cow that they do for their dog. Just, not on a personal, like, they don't need to be at a sanctuary like I'm at right now and having that, but to understand that cow deserves the same amount of love as that dog, and how I can be more influential into helping people kind of take that next leap from somebody like yourself, who's so influential to so many people.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I just want to say my wife, I think, became vegan when she was 14. And the same thing, it was just a natural thing.
Yeah.
I had it's like our sense of oneness, okay? So when I lived in Arizona, you walk down the street and there's cows and this and that, and there was this bull, and I was having a discussion with them. Face to face, we're that far apart, but there was a fence separating us. And I said, how is it when your horns go out like this? How do you work with that? How do you eat food or catch food? And he goes, and I realized what he does is he actually told me by moving his horns, he could get anything in front of him. But what's my point? My point is that, again, thought form, animals understand. So the first step is to understand that these are sentient beings. Okay. We're all one. God made a soul, not first in the animals. The animals got the soul first. Then he created humans. So they actually were the first to be empowered with the soul. And so, bulls are big, you don't want to mess around, but we're sitting there having this discussion, okay? And so when you sense that they're sentient beings, they also understand that you sense that they're sentient beings. And again, I'm talking about nose to nose, that far away, over the fence. And so that, I think, is the key. If you can't get that they're sentient beings, it's really hard to get off the ground. In terms of the process. But if you get it and they get that you get that they're sentient beings, then you actually can have a conversation. I mean, this is a bull on the street. I don't know the bull. I mean, we're just talking, I know that sounds funny, but that's
not at all.
But it's a way of being.
Yeah.
That all our souls are connected. And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that I know my soul's connected to him. And when you approach an animal with that understanding, it changes the whole dynamic, because they immediately get it. I think that's the answer. So we are all connected. We are all one soul. When you get that, then it's like you don't have a problem making the jump.
I'm so glad you just said
it's a consciousness issue.
Yeah. No, and I'm so glad you just said way of being, because that reminded me, this year's been quite the year for me. And one thing I realized was my addiction to doing, and that my kind of thought process that my worthiness and my purpose was dependent on what I'm doing. And what what I mean? And what I had to start to discover when I'm still kind of learning is how to be. And I don't want to say just be, but the importance of being, and how we can support ourselves to get to that place. Can you talk to that? It sounds like meditation is a huge piece of that. Can you take that? Because I think a lot of our audience has experienced or is at risk at experiencing total burnout, exhaustion, in that place of that doing addiction. Can you speak to that?
Certainly. So it starts with loving yourself enough to want to heal yourself. How do you start to love yourself? Okay, that's the question. So I find when people meditate, they begin to know the truth of who they are. They begin to know the beauty of their soul, because they're doing things that help them experience the beauty of their soul. You see where that goes?
Mm.
So, I mean, so as we meditate and we get more in touch with the source of who we are, which is the God within us, okay, we naturally want to start taking care of that. We naturally want to optimize it with diet, with exercise, with meditation. But the more you meditate, to know it becomes a hardcore reality. It's not like a theory. You experience the light of God within yourself. It's a direct experience. And the real message here is it has to be a direct experience. So what I do as a person teaching meditation since 73 is get people meditating. Okay. And then it's like you're tasting this incredible fruit, it's just the nectar of your soul. You're experiencing it. It's like, well, I think I want more of that. And so that's how that begins to happen. So the only way to check the water out is put your foot in the water. And so to me, getting people to do rather than talk. So when I'm teaching meditation, we're going to meditate. I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'll talk to you for 10 minutes and explain it, but then let's do it. And so I think that's the way to begin to break that barrier. Because as soon as you first talk about there's something incredible inside of you, the light of God, the self, not the ego self, but the big self, there you go. And the idea is to begin to experience that.
Now, you went off the deep end. I don't know how to say it. Like you went and was doing 6 hours of meditation a day to get to this place, for some time. Do we need to go to that route, or how can people get started?
Not to do what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay. There are two pieces going on to explain that. First, I'm in an ashram in India where it's normal to meditate. It's not abnormal. It's not like in America. No, what I see is that people if you can meditate an hour a day, that's good. Some people do a half hour twice a day, but some people it takes them a half hour, 45 minutes to get to that quiet place. Mm-hmm. So if you could meditate an hour a day, that's good to begin to know that exists. Okay. Now, what was going on for me was the power of what we call the Shakti, the feminine force. Okay. Shakti Kundalini. It was driving me to meditate. That's I even asked my friend, I said, what is going on? Is it okay to meditate this much? I'm being driven. It's not my idea. It's what's happening to me. He thought, that's very funny. That's what he thought. He said, fine. And he just laughed, waved me in. But the point I'm making is, once we get started, God is guiding us. And so for me, that was what I've been doing, because I have a certain purpose in life while we're having this discussion. It's like, well, I had to do that because that brought me to a way different understanding, just knowing that there's a self. You see what I'm saying here? Mm-hmm. For, people just to know their self. If you're meditating an hour a day, you're going to know that over time. Now, there is something else that helps, and that's what we call, in different traditions, the awakening of the spiritual energy. So we can call it Shaktipat there, and the biblical tradition is called Haniha. Same thing, a transmission of energy from the spiritual teacher, spiritual master, that awakens the energy in the student. Okay, that's a very real thing. That's what Muktananda did to me and thousands of people, not just to me. I wasn't like special. And and in the Torah tradition, it happened more individually. Moses looked at Yehoshua and the light was within him, that kind of thing. Or, well, I'm just, but the principle is there. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. So when that's awakened, then that whole inner life is awakened. So you become very aware of that. So that's what I did. Actually, believe it or not, you can do it over the internet, which I never would have believed. But so I'm doing that, on Thursdays is the last before you, we had 2 sessions of doing that. And then I have one in Brazil and one here and there. And we can awaken it just by the energy coming through the eyes. It's usually by look, by touch, by sound, by breath. Like looking at it, breathed into my mouth, and it was like, whoa. And, but you understand what I'm saying. So we can do it over the internet by look and by sound. So that's how that can be, if that makes sense. And so it's available to everybody. As I say, every Thursday, here I am in Israel, but it's like, okay, so Thursdays at 7 in Israel, which is, East Coast time, noon. So you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
West Coast, it's a little bit earlier, it's 9 o'clock. So it's available. And it does work. And when it's awakened, then it's really easy to experience the light within, because the light's been turned on.
And you've set that up through Tree of Life?
Yeah, people can go to the treeoflife.mn.co.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Schedule when I'm doing that.
Yeah. Yes,
Go ahead.
I joined Tree of Life, and I was being interviewed before this actually, but I had wanted to join, so I will be on a future meditation.
Good.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
And the more you do it, the more it deepens. That was my own discovery for myself. The more I was with McDonald's, the more it happened. So all those things add up, but you have to want it. So you have to be turned on enough to want it, to love yourself enough, not only to heal yourself, but to go beyond that. So you asked one other question that is relevant, which is what I call the 6 foundations and 7-fold peace. So I'm basically teaching a way of life, a simple way of life that can lead to liberation. Because that's in my world, that's the highest value, to merge with God. Okay, so we start with a 100% vegan, 80% live food diet. Okay, so that is taking care of the flow of the spiritual energies through you, and then the next is building what we call life force energy, chi or prana, sacred dance, yoga, which I do every day, yoga, and different things like that, Tai Chi, Qigong, there's a bunch that will build the prana. Third is service and charity. People don't consider that, but when you're offering your heart to people, it's like a really good thing. So, again, I have programs in 26 different countries. Okay. Diabetes prevention and organic vegan farming, which is really caught on in Europe. I have one in Cameroon, Africa. Cameroon, we have over 55 organic vegan farms.
So cool. I want to go work on one.
So it's really exciting. Okay. People get it. They know what organic is. They know pesticides are good. It's not really a hard discussion. It's harder discussion here in America or in the Western world. But Europe, it's not, Africa, it's not hard. Then working with a spiritual teacher, because people need guidance. It's common sense. You want to learn to play the piano? Well, you can learn by yourself, but how long would that take? So a spiritual teacher, a spiritual master is one that can help you not fall through into all the holes along the way. Okay.
And how do we find the right spiritual teacher?
That's a really important question. And I deal with it in some of my books, Into the Nothing I talk about. So when I sensed I needed to find one, okay, they had to answer that question, what's the meaning of death? Somewhere in their teachings, and they have to be someone who's liberated. For me, that was the criteria. Not everybody needs that. You can just have a good teacher who knows more than you do.
What does that mean to you for somebody to be liberated?
It means you're free to move in any direction in your life, and you're more than immersed in God than not.
Okay.
You could be 52% immersed in God, you're still liberated, and then it gets more and more until you're totally absorbed.
Okay.
But you cross the barrier where you know the truth of who you are. And that's not intellectually, you can read that in the book, but from your experience.
Got it.
And then with that, the self, and you become free to move in any direction. You can just be totally authentic in the process.
Got it.
That hints at it, because it's kind of beyond the mind type thing, but those are some qualities, I'll put it that way. So you want them to be that, and then it has to be a person you like. You have to resonate with them. Yeah. I describe it in my book, Into Nothing. It's a spiritual marriage. It's not sexual. It's a spiritual marriage. And there has to be a clear contract, literally, about how this works. A teacher-student contract, and proper boundaries, which doesn't always happen. People cross over the boundaries, and the role of the teacher, it's their responsibility to keep the boundaries clear. And you have to find somebody that kind of fits that. And you have to like them. You have to have a resonance.
Yeah.
Because you're going places with the teacher, it's like where you haven't ever gone before, and you have to have that fundamental trust. So that's kind of roughly. It's a little bit more complex than just saying, well, they've got a good reputation. It's like,
right.
It's very personal.
No, that
but
makes
other criteria sense. Have to be met.
Got it. Well, as we start to wrap up, I've got a great curiosity around as I find myself kind of elevating slowly. There starts to be this kind of balance of who I can talk to about some of the stuff that I'm learning, and you talk about like what it means to, and I'm going to quote here, I think, live in the world between nothing, the world beyond time, and something, the temporal world, and what it means to experience a fully integrated life in multiple dimensions, which already right there for the average person sounds very out there. So as I start to get more, quote, out there with my beliefs and what I'm discovering and what I believe in and what I'm feeling, I find I have less and less people to talk to. And then I feel a little more disconnected from this 3D reality. And I've had some trouble having fun almost like in this world because I'm exploring all this stuff. It can be a little overwhelming. And I think some of our audience is probably making some of those steps and starting to feel that. Can you talk a little bit to that and what you...
I mean, that's a great question. And it's a very real question. Because we're moving into other realities and dimensions, okay? They're all there, but we're moving into those. So the first thing is, a lot of people tend to shift their friends to find somebody who they can talk to.
Yeah.
This makes common sense.
Yeah.
So, but not everybody's in a hurry to do that. Or tune in. Like, for example, what I've set up at the website, treeoflife.m, and is a place where people can talk who are asking exactly the same questions. But they need somebody to hear. They need that support. We call, kahila, group support. It's very, very important. And to have it. It makes it much easier because then you're not alone. A lot of people start and they feel alone. Well, my friend's like, what's going on? So you have to have that like-minded people who are on the spiritual path. And that's a very important step to take. The other thing is your value system changes because you're feeling the truth of things, the light of God within you, and that so fills you with that joy, peace, and love. You're not seeking it from events outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that becomes, where the big shift. That's where you start to become independent of social society. Doesn't mean you don't interface. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
It means you become, spiritually, emotionally, mentally independent because you are tuned into the light within, and you're being filled with that light and joy. I call it non-causal peace, non-causal love, and non-causal compassion. And I even mentioned in terms of relationships because it actually is better for relationships because you don't get dependent on the other person as a source of your joy or your sense of love. So when you're loving yourself, then that's easy. In the relationship, the other person, if they're activating that sense of love for yourself, that's a good thing. But you're not dependent on them.
Mm.
So it helps you move away from codependent relationships. That's pretty important, for a healthy relationship. So really knowing the self and focusing on that as your prime life experience throughout the day is really the kind of a key element in this. And then you're shifting friends, you're shifting your own consciousness, you're knowing where your joy really comes from, a non-causal joy, love, peace, compassion from within yourself, the light of God within you. So you're not trying to get something out there that's nowhere near what's happening in here. And that's how it works. It's simple when you understand it the way I'm saying it.
Yeah.
You don't have to work at it, it just happens naturally.
No, that makes perfect sense. I kind of feel like I'm in this phase of life where and I've heard this quoted something like this, is I'm like a caterpillar in the cocoon that's like in this transformation where I'm not a caterpillar anymore and I'm not quite a butterfly. And that brings up some kind of, some confusion and some restlessness almost of still wanting to be a part of society as I knew it before, whereas I can't see it the same anymore. And
Exactly.
so I'm
You have
really
to let go of
grateful.
that and know you're seeing it at a different level, in a different way, and learning how to interface that way.
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about too. It's not like you're seeing it different. You also see it different, then you have to learn to interact differently.
Right. Yeah. And what about for you, Dr. Cousens? What's next for you? You've done so much. You've set up so much for other people around the world. What are you doing next to help with your purpose and fill your cup?
Well, my cup's pretty filled. God
Yeah.
has filled it pretty well. But in terms of service, we're doing some really work with veganism here. I didn't quite get it, but Israel is the #1 vegan country in the world.
Heard that.
Didn't really get it till I got here. So I'm working with, that vegan community to help it really take more leadership with it, because it's all there. You got Tel Aviv, which is the biggest vegan city in the world. And it's like, whoa, okay, so, and it's easy to get vegan food anywhere. So that's one thing. I'm continuing to do my humanitarian work, which is worldwide. and sharing kind of the spiritual teachings again. Since COVID, the whole thing has gone, over the internet, which is fine in terms of that. So I'm sharing the teachings that way. And then we're doing a lot of things. We have spiritual fasts on the internet, our 7-day fast. I teach a special course for the mind and yoga, Yana yoga. It's the yoga of the mind, so I'm basically doing many of the things I was doing before. The community setting is a little different. There are people who are totally living off the land, organic, live food off the land, that there are communities like that. And they're more out like where we were the other day. And, I support those kind of things, for people. And basically teach it. I'm also, teaching the live food spirituality at the Sally Reedman School of Naturopathy. So I'm a professor there. So I'm doing a lot of different things. The big project, you know what I mean? Like the diabetes, that hasn't come into focus and may not. Maybe it's time to be doing what I'm doing. But I don't know that yet. So just sitting very active, but I'm not committing here there. But there is this pull with the vegan. So we're really starting we're going to have a conference, I don't know, probably in December, January here, that will be more than just looking at food, So it may be that way. I don't, I'll see where that goes, So that's kind of how it is. I'm not as, this is the way it has to be, or that the game hand hasn't come together.
Got it.
I have an advantage because when you're healthy and young and ready to play, there's no emergency here. I don't ever expect to retire. I expect to keep getting more, alive with the process. So it's going to get clear next year too. We'll see what happens.
I love it. I love it. Any final words? Yeah. Right? Any final words you want to?
I think the most important thing for people is what I said twice, is to love yourself enough to heal yourself. Love yourself enough to want to know God and the beauty and ecstasy of knowing God. That's like the biggest thing. I've laid out a pretty simple thing. We shared the 6 foundations, and the 7-fold piece I didn't talk about, but a key part of that is the relationship is a spiritual path. Okay, I just lay that out. So, and to understand that we're talking about a simple lifestyle that one needs to work out for themselves. You don't have to go anywhere where it leads to liberation. And we went through the 6 foundations, which are all part of that lifestyle. So I want to bless everybody. I want to bless you. I love your enthusiasm and the depth already where you're at. It's really good. And I bless everyone, bless the listeners, and bless you, Ella, that you continue to expand in your joy and your love and understand spiritual joy is the path to God. So you want to keep the joy. It should never be misery. It's always joy. That's the key. The key teaching. No suffering is needed.
Understood.
I mean, people, they don't get that. They need to suffer. That's it. But it's not needed. So stay with the spiritual joy and, live with the experience of the inner self as you walk through life. And it's just a wonderful way to live.
You're amazing. Thank you so very much for being here and sharing with us today. And bless you as well, Dr. Cousens.
Okay, bless it. If people want to know more about me, they can go to treeoflife.mn.co, or if you can't remember that, drcousens.com. and it takes you where all the workshops and seminars and offerings are.
Yes, and we
And
will.
also we have a newsletter as well for people to sign up to, so and kind of keep current.
Yes, I'm on your newsletter list, and we will put all those links in the show notes, and hope to see everybody involved.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you for your good work.
Thank
And
you.
excellent.
Hey.